What's going on, guys? It's Joe from Incognito Wraps. It's Wrap Like a King again. We're very excited to show you what we have this year. We've been wanting to enter in for a couple years now, and after seeing what our friends over at Exotic Graphics put out, really showed us that in order to win a competition this large now is nail down a great video and put together a really awesome product. My partner Chris and I put a lot of thought into what we wanted to do, and we were looking for the perfect customer, the perfect client that had unlimited budget, an awesome car, was willing to let us have full design freedom. And after a long time looking, we realized that that customer might not be around the corner. NASA space engineer walked in and he had a 1942's Willys, beautiful car. I said, you know, I'd like to wrap this in chrome. We thought completely doable. We started kind of walking through what to expect. You know, the chrome has its limitations. It's going to be difficult, but it's doable. I started showing him where we might have to put some seams here or there, and he's like, no, I don't want seams. I sat down and put some thought into whether or not it's going to be able to limit the amount of seams that were going to go on there, and I had a plan. And he also told me that he wanted it to be printed graphics. We talked for a few hours and realized that his bar was quite high. Once we were all finished, I said, you got anything else? And he says, yes, and I want paint protection film on the entire car from top to bottom. You know what? This is going to be very difficult, but I'm up for the challenge. Once we decided we were going to bring the car on, we asked the customer to bring the vehicle down. We knew that there was going to be a lot of prep work. We started going over the finish of the vehicle and realized that we were going to need to do some work to the body, to the paint, before we even started wrapping. So my lead installer in the back, Fernando, took it in the back.
It's your boy Fernando from Incognito Wraps. If you follow us on Instagram, which you should, you recognize my voice and all the videos and updates. My job here is not only to be the pretty face, but to make sure that everything that goes out this door, it's up to our standards, which are pretty high. Make sure that everyone here knows what to do, and make sure that Joe finds his squeegee, because if you know Joe, you know that he never puts his squeegee in the same place. When we first got the car, it was a shell. It was like straight out of the body shop. It was primer. The surface wasn't the best. So the first thing that we had to take care of was the surface of the entire car. Make sure that it was completely smooth and ready to put some vinyl on. So what we went ahead and do is sand the whole car. After that, we went and washed every single surface, because when you do that, a lot of the wet primer tends to go in crevices and places where we tend to tuck the vinyl in. And of course, you don't want to have any of that, because otherwise it's going to start failing.
Hi, I'm Chris Commit from Incognito Wraps. I'm Joe's business partner. I started this company about 6 years ago. As far as this being more technically difficult than other jobs that are usually brought in, this was definitely much more than normal. In this particular job, there's wrapping with chrome, wrapping with laminate, then wrapping with PPF, so that causes a whole nother issue, which means there's 3 different times things can go wrong, things have to get reprinted, things need to be remade, and if things don't line up the exact way they're supposed to, that causes more reprints too.
The biggest challenge for me was the customer had a very specific design in mind. So I knew that the only way that we were going to show our ability at design is we were going to have to tackle this from the logistics sides of design.
This was a very, very basic mock-up. We took the base design of this kind of flamey American flag pattern as a background and applied the stars and stripes with their tribal flames on top of that, the scallop flames more like. He wanted to see these type of flames come through and really line up with these flames. When we initially started this project, we were trying to have these a lot more separate. And he came through and said, you know what, these have to line up, there's no way. So we came back to the drawing board and actually had to go through it and make all those things line up. It was a huge undertaking that we wouldn't have taken on had we not had this type of contest in mind.
First thing we're going to have to do is build a very in-depth grid system that we can follow, that was going to help us understand how the graphics were going to fall and what kind of challenges we're going to face by doing this with Chrome. So Chris got on the computer and started developing his own grid pattern, and we started applying it to the vehicle, especially all the contour areas.
This is a video showing how we actually wrap the car in a grid pattern to know where the stretch was going to fall, to know how the graphics had to be printed. We took this grid pattern, videoed it, so that I could go back to this and refer to where each panel met each seam, so that in places like here, I could see how this grid lined up with this grid, and then come back here and then see where, for example, G7 lined up with K2. This is very integral to find out to make sure it was going to line up. In some places we had to have stars bridge seams and actually line up across those things. So once I did this and kind of refer back to this video, I had to then bring it up into Photoshop. We can then interpolate that onto the prints to make sure that they're going to fold the same way that we wanted them to. So we actually have the pattern of how it was printed, and this is actually the seam lined up here. And you can see, compared to the video, that's actually how that seam was built. You can see there's G25 around the headlight, and we have that corresponding to here on the print.
One of the things that we needed to do first was figure out what can we do with the Chrome. Where can we push it? How far can we push it? The Chrome went really well. I was shocked that I did the fenders one time. But the print, however, went several times throughout this whole learning process.
Print is always a little more difficult because you have to make sure that in these type of wraps where you have high-end cars, really particular kinds of lineup, things like that, they have to line up, they have to be perfect. Once the Chrome was put down, we had to map out how the prints were going to deform on the fenders and getting those to flow into the door. These things are almost rolling works of art, so they have to be perfect.
When trying to make everything perfect, a bunch of things go wrong, and that was probably one of the hardest things, you know, having to keep the patience to having to redo, you know, a couple stuff, the patience to take our time.
Number 6, we gotta take it off again. We're trying to get this star to land. As you can see, we're about 2 inches too low and 1 inch over, so we're gonna compensate the design to land that. So we can get this in the right place, but we end up with too much material over here. So it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and I've got the fender down probably 8 times, and I'm like finally happy, and I got it the first time perfect. And I reach over and I grab the steamer and I start to steam just a little bit of the last part, and the steamer fell over and scratched the ink right off the print, and I cried. So the next morning I came in and I put a pool noodle on the bar, so that will never happen again. The other challenge is, once we got the graphics onto the vehicle, how we were going to be able to apply it in the same way that the Chrome was going to need to be applied. Through the process, we realized that some areas we were going to be able to layer, and other areas we're going to have to build up. Even though we knew that the graphic wasn't going to be over the top, we really focused on the details and made sure that even though it would transition from multiple pieces, that the graphic would flow throughout to show the difficult level of taking a medium like the Chrome and making it flawlessly flow through the vehicle. So the front fenders were the first thing that we actually installed. So what we did was we wrapped it in Chrome first. It was really important for me to make sure that it was going to be a long-lasting job and not just push it to its limits and hope. And we had it set for 6 weeks before we put any graphics on it to ensure that it was going to stay. The fenders were completely wrapped in one piece. The nose was done in one piece. From the side shot of the vehicle, there's virtually only one seam from the side, which is right here on this body line. From the back of the vehicle, you have the trunk and bumper piece, which was all one piece. Up at the top, what made it very difficult is you have the Punisher that follows the body line, so we couldn't stretch anything out, so all the stretch had to come down. From back here, up and over the whole roof and down to the front of the car is entirely one piece per side. We had to put a butt seam where the 2 sides come down and connect, and we hid it in the graphic down here. There's actually 3 lines in the graphic, and we decided to butt join each one in a slightly different place, but all hiding it visually.
Another really hard thing that we had to deal with was having the engine inside the car. So the engine itself was, a lot of the parts were polished, so we had to be really, really careful not scratching them and not getting them wet either, because then we'll ruin kind of like the polish. We had to be very, very, very careful, and we couldn't take any of the windows out. The moldings in the rear windows were really, really, really tight, so tucking the chrome in there and making sure that it looked good was definitely one of the hardest parts.
The day we were done and it was time to film, I was already so beat down, and I came into the shop and it was all done and we're getting ready to get ready for filming, and Fernando was buffing out the vehicle, and the shine was just incredible, and we pulled it out for the first time and the car just came alive. All the hard work in that moment for me was the fulfilling part of it. You know, seeing that finished project and knowing it just looked amazing.
The most rewarding part about having this project was the customer's reaction was all said and done. Seeing his face kind of light up when he saw the car initially, that warms our hearts to no end.
The most rewarding thing about this whole project was getting to drive it down the strip. It was definitely the coolest car I've ever driven. I cannot tell you how many people were just breaking their necks looking at the car, pointing at it. It's like they never seen anything like that before. Just driving that car was a very, very special experience in itself.
Overall, I found this project probably the most challenging thing I have ever done. Pushed me to the limits. A lot of time, a lot of energy, and I really got to thank all of Incognito crew. But a special thanks has got to come out to my wife Kathy. A lot of late nights, a lot of support, and she helped tremendously on the paint protection film. Without her, I don't know what I would have done. Also, special thanks to my partner Chris. Without him, the design would not have been possible. Also, a thanks to Fernando, my lead installer, and my good friend Shane Everett. You guys put a lot of hard work and late hours in. I really hope that you guys can enjoy this project and see the level of dedication and work that we went through to pull this off.
Yeah.